I'll just leave it. I'll take this instead. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I wanted it for a timer, just so I could keep track. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, as you're filing in. If you would take note of the instructions up here. So if you are with a group, please break yourselves up, sit by people that you don't know. And as much as you can, I know some people are wearing embroidered shirts and stuff, but as much as you can, take name tags and pins off and kind of hide your university. Yeah, I don't have like duct tape for you. But hide your university affiliation. Try not to discuss your program affiliation. You're more than your program, and we really want people to be talking as individuals. Thank you. Oh, Ron's taking a picture of us. Did you want to stand up here too? How's it going?
Like if you're to the side of the screen, that's fine.
Okay.
But try not to end up like in front of the screen. So you
Yes,
feel
sir.
the projection on you, because then the light is all weird, and I'm seeing a huge part of the screen, and that's really not in focus on the screen. You want for you. So.
All right, will do. Thank you. Do you want to do the? Yeah. Do you want to do it now? Because I think they change it. So. Okay. Can you help us take a?
Do you want that? We're facing you.
That's okay. Are we ready to go ahead and get started? Awesome. Well, welcome. If you'll take note on the slide here, please, if you've come with a group, please disperse yourselves around the room a little bit. And as much as you're able to, I know some people are wearing embroidery, but hide name tags, hide pins, things that are associated with your university. So we really want people to be talking as people and not be talking as members of programs and things like that. So welcome today. How's everybody feeling today? Is still a little like food coma going on from lunch or like not enough caffeine? That's all right. We'll get into it. Well, I kind of feel like a flight attendant saying this, but we know you have a choice in which breakout sessions you fly. So thank you for joining us for the good, the bad, and the talking cat. And if that reference doesn't ring a bell right now, don't worry, we'll discuss it later. So, of course, right now it decides. Can you advance the slides, or do we need to fix the clicker?
I see the light flashing, so it looks like it should work.
Dan, can you help me out here? Oh, there we go. Do I need to just ask you to advance the slides?
Just click it and I'll hit the green light.
Okay. All right. So who are we? I'm Andrea Henschel. I'm a retired Air Force pilot. So having been a military aviator, can you guess what I did after the service? Exactly, I joined the circus. Yeah. No, truly, I did. I was an aerial circus performer for 2 years because that follows naturally. So I did that for a couple of years. It did not pay very well. And then I found out how much I could make as a government contractor, so traded in my leotard for cargo pants. Did that for about a year. While I was doing that, I was applying to the PhD program at MIT because apparently I don't like sleep very much. And after 4 tries, MIT finally realized, well, it wasn't very environmentally friendly sending me rejection letters. So I was finally admitted. When I got to MIT, there was no SVA chapter there. So I started one. I grabbed another grad student who was a veteran, a couple undergrads who were veterans, and we created a chapter. And we did it in the middle of the pandemic, which means that our advocacy, our socializing, our professional development all required the use of virtual tools. So we figured we'd come here, talk to all of you about some of the insights that we had, and hopefully you will provide back some experiences you've had, and we can all learn from each other. Now, we're very fortunate that we have the incredible Rose Smith helping us out here.
She gives me too much credit, but I'm Rose Smith. I'm an officer in the United States Air Force right now. Prior enlisted, fixing medical equipment. Now I do administrative paperwork all day. So that's super fun. But I have been on a lot of Zoom meetings, so that makes me qualified, I guess, to talk on this. As you can see, though, there are 3 names on here. Joshua Johnson was supposed to be the person in my place right now. Fortunately, unfortunately, he's been deployed. So my qualification of having Zoom meetings has put me in this position. However, he is a great asset. He is the statewide veteran outreach coordinator for Colorado State University, meaning he is trying to take Colorado State University's methods of having such a wonderful chapter and spread that not only to the other Colorado universities, but all across the country as well. So if you have additional questions after this, both Andrea and him are fabulous people to get in contact with.
Thank you so much for that. All right, if you haven't heard of the talking cat before, this is where it comes from. Yeah, here's some oh yes.
You have a filter turned on, it'll be able to say, you might want to,
Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you, I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here, she's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. Yes, you hear a lot of it. I'm not a cat.
I can see that.
I love how that guy loses it, like as soon as he says he's not a cat.
Arrow next to this.
I don't know if you saw like the upper left-hand corner, the penalty for recording and distributing that, but we ended up with it anyway. No complaints, that's amazing. All right, so a lot of times we look at these virtual tools as something that we have during the pandemic, but what about after the pandemic?
So we're really grateful, obviously, to be here at NatCon and being in person and getting to talk and network, but that doesn't mean that virtual socialization is going to go away. So with it, we've discovered there are some goods to it, even though we love being in person. So increased participation in events. So we have hundreds, I'm not sure if it's thousands. I know we have hundreds of student veterans here. But there are thousands of student veterans, as Jared Lyons said in the State of SVA yesterday. And not all of them can be here, whether it's timing or cost. So having events online allows them to still learn the pertinent information that SVA has to share, or anyone. Reducing time commitment to attend. Anyone in the military, you have a travel day at the beginning and a travel day at the end. Not everyone can take that much leave, PTO, you have schoolwork. Next, no travel requirements. Kind of like with what I was saying, travel takes a lot of your time, and it's a huge expense. A lot of colleges are fortunate enough to get funding to come here, but some have to pay out of pocket because they just know the value that this experience brings. Reduced logistics to organize. So that can be a lot of different things, from booking your travel, booking your hotel. If you take a flight, how are you going to get from the airport to the hotel? All of those different things. And then there's food costs. No parking. One of my least favorite things about going to a city is having to deal with parking, so I love that that's reduced. No building access issues. There are times where, especially with COVID, they've locked down different buildings to mitigate access for people. And so if you're doing it virtually, all you have to do is have a link most of the time. And then members can use the tools for interviews and employments. So some jobs are really out in rural areas. A lot of us think, oh, I can fly into a big city like LA or New York, do my job interview. But some of us don't want jobs in the big city, and you have to drive an hour out of that city to get to an interview for a maybe. So having this online presence allows you to do that interview much faster and with a lot less cost.
All right, so here's the flow of what we're going to do today. We're going to have you, hopefully you're sitting near people that you don't know. We're going to have you form groups of 4 or 5. So just in a second, I'll have you just like turn chairs and form groups close to you. Do introductions in your group. And again, try to avoid talking about your program and what school you're at. You're so much more than that. There's so much more information there to share. And we're going to go through 4 different questions. We're going to give you about 5 minutes to discuss in your groups your own ideas about how to answer these questions. And then after that, we'll come back and you will present to the room. You can designate somebody or have each individual take a few seconds to present an idea to the room as a whole. And then at the very end, we'll have some feedback from you guys and some closing remarks from us.
And just to add to the flow, what we'll do for the 5-minute timer is you'll just hear a little ding go off and we'll bring it back together as an example for you. So the first thing that we're going to do is break into groups and introduce ourselves. As it says on the screen, we'd like you to share a name and a fun fact about yourself. No school associations, no academic programs. And also to really maybe incentivize you not to necessarily talk to the people that you know. The point of this is to gather ideas from other schools and what they've done. So it behooves you to talk to people who you don't know what their answer is going to be. So let's have everyone get into groups of 4 or 5. And you can make your own little circles or squares. Any shape is available for you. 2 minutes? Just to confirm, I'll be doing timer and mic, and you'll be doing questions. Let's bring it back, guys.
All right, so I'll just quickly bring your attention back up here and just to refocus everybody. Thanks for doing those introductions, for breaking up into groups so quickly. Appreciate that. So again, the goal here is to talk about virtual tools for member engagement. So again, keep that in mind as we go through these questions. So our first question is actually a two-parter. How and what do you post regularly to your chapter's social media accounts? And if you don't post regularly, what can you do to start posting regularly? So we'll give you 5 minutes to discuss among your groups. And again, you'll hear that little alarm go off, and then be ready to present to the room, please.
I'm excited to see what they have to say. I hope Rob is giving them like the best examples.
Alrighty. Hopefully you all came up with some pretty good answers to that. So who wants to share? And I have prizes for people who want to share. Who's first?
I'll go first.
All right.
I'm not kidding. So for why, first, we don't really have a social media account.
Sir, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
We're recording, so we need your voice.
Okay, no worries. We really don't have a social media account. COVID really kind of killed our club over the last couple of years, so we're rebuilding. Got some good ideas with the group, LinkedIn, Instagram, maybe going back to Facebook. So that's kind of where we're at. I can't remember what everybody was saying. You had something there too.
I said I post things on LinkedIn more exclusively, but like for the SVA conference, I was in the honors and I was posting content to the SVA group while it was actually happening, because most of our student veterans are across the country, can't come to the conference, so.
Yeah, great idea. I'm glad you're rebuilding your chapter.
I'll be that
All right,
person.
here you go. Hopefully. All right. Oh, so close.
So we actually had some mixed responses in our group. We had some organizations that haven't posted anything in a really long time. And then I shared about my organization. So our communications officer is actually a dependent. So she's a lot younger than, say, myself, who's like old and doesn't social media at all. So it's really convenient because she'll post on social media all the time. And we post a lot of different content on social media. We post about events that are going on, especially if it's something that our Military Connection Center is doing. They'll ask us to go ahead and post that information so that our students know about it. We'll post information about, we had mentioned scholarships and internships and things of those nature. We post that type of information also, which was some of the stuff that was mentioned in our group. And then we post information that SVA puts out, like SVA National. We also post about changes that happen with benefits. So anytime that we know that there's a change for benefits, we'll post that information. And we're on Facebook, Instagram. And one of the newer things that we started just this year that I actually think was really awesome is that we started a Discord. So I know that Jared had mentioned this. Discord is actually really convenient. And the nice thing about Discord is that you can we will call them separate channels, where each different channel is a different type of discussion. So you'll have, one channel where you're just talking about internships, one channel where you're just posting stuff about scholarships. You'll have, we have a meme one where we post nothing but ridiculous memes to each other and laugh at them, because people enjoy that kind of, camaraderie and being able to have that connection. And so especially for a lot of our distance learning students who may not necessarily be able to get super involved with our chapter, that gives them a way to be able to actually feel like they belong because they can communicate with us if they want to. Sorry, that was a lot.
Oh, that's great. I especially like memes. I love humor myself. You may have noticed. So. All right. I can underhand this one because you're closer.
Any of you guys? Awesome.
Nice.
Hey everyone, my name is Wesley Wilson, presenting on behalf of our group. So in terms of what we post, it really kind of runs the gamut. It could be community service work, anything we can do to highlight our military-connected students on campus. Lots of videos and pictures. We found that those are more, folks tend to engage more with that type of content rather than things that are very text-heavy. Slack and Discordia, communications channels like that came up a lot. Lots of polls, things that folks can engage with and share what they think. The other thing is to post regularly and often and just engage as much as you can, and also kind of be deliberate about when you're posting. So whenever I would do this regularly, I'd try and get up at like 6 a.m. when folks are just getting up, or schedule posts around that time. And then the other thing is, if you can, that I'd like to mention is VA's work study program. So when I was in my previous role, we were able to bring on VA work-study students, and within the confines of what you can do with that program, you can do veterans outreach. And so you can designate someone who can, a communications person who can, share and post content regularly, because it really is a lot of work to being as engaged as you should be in order to have the following that you need to have. So, thanks.
Okay, great. We'll have to move on to the next question, but thank you very much for that information. Here, you want your candy? Oh, sure. There you go. All right, next question. Besides social media, what virtual tools do you use, and how often do you engage using them? Again, 5 minutes. know, from the noise, this is awesome. There's some great discussions happening, but unfortunately, we only have so much time. So maybe if you haven't spoken yet, or especially if your group hasn't spoken yet, maybe offer some of the ideas that you all had for this one.
We saw all of you talking, so we know something was said.
We were talking about outside of social media, how to engage with students. On our campus, we chose to use Canvas, the academic portal, because the students are already in there, so they're able to see all of our calendar appointments, join virtual meetings right there, and can see what's going on and add it with their academic courses and schedules that they need to be following, and don't have to join a separate platform to see what's going on with the club. And that made a huge difference when we made that transition.
That's great. Yeah, go where the students are. Ready? Oh, nice catch. Nice save. Unfortunately, that's my last one. It was just like the teaser at the beginning. I'll bring more candy next year.
All right, so one thing that we talked about is incorporating the concept of the elephant of the room. In if I can speak English, that would be nice. But the elephant in the room, which is Zoom and virtual conferences and things like that. And I know pretty much everybody at this point has Zoom fatigue. But one thing that we as a chapter were really able to do, especially at the start of the pandemic, was trying to use Zoom in a positive way. We implemented Zoom happy hours, where it would just be like a 2-hour block where we would get the chapter together and everyone would just sit on their couch and have a drink and just talk about things. We also utilized resources like the military office at our college does a newsletter, and we were able to get a SVA portion of our newsletter to be able to go out to the students to advertise for things like the happy hours. And then another really useful tool that we talked about, and I know it's been mentioned before, but things like Discord or Slack, which is essentially the business version of Discord, where you can have all of the members of the organization or all the military connected students there with different channels and different options of things to talk about. So like we would use it to disperse information, to just chit chat about classes. We had like a study link up group kind of going on GroupMe and Slack and things of that nature. So we were really able to use those resources to kind of, especially during the pandemic when people felt like they were really alone. And I think a lot of these things are going to continue because like we would get higher attendance for some of the virtual events than you would the in-person events because of the hassles of like driving and things like that. So
Absolutely, great points. I love the Zoom happy hour. That's a good idea.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Oh, hello. Well, that's loud. I use Microsoft Teams for mine. Does anyone use Microsoft Teams? Okay, I love the Canvas idea a lot because we use Canvas. I never thought of that. That's so cool because we just don't get engagement on Microsoft Teams. Me personally. That's so neat. Okay. Well, do people get? Oh my gosh. Do you? What's your engagement like on? For those that use Teams, I'm just really curious. Is your engagement pretty high comparatively, or is it? So we get about 30 people who actively post out of about 300 we have. So I was just curious. But then, well, the rest of our group though, that was just me. I had some questions. We use raffles, and I've used a raffle to do that. It's virtual, but you know, we give them stuff. Do you guys have anything you wanted to share?
Sort of like you did with the happy hour, we did Zoom Jeopardy, and we would have the veterans coordinator sort of run it, and then all the questions would be like forms for 200, and it'd be, what is the veterans enrollment data form? And it'd be like, oh, it's the form you fill out to get your GI Bill benefits. And it sort of teaches them what they need to know, and then they also just have some time with the veterans coordinator over Zoom.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, we need to move on to the next question. I'm sorry, I know everybody has such great input, and this is awesome. And I'm glad you're sharing in your groups. So sorry we only have an hour. All right, next one. What ideas, this is actually my favorite question. What ideas have you tried that didn't work? We learn a lot from failure. And then if you have any idea why it didn't work, then go ahead and share that too. All right, again, 5 minutes with your groups. I'm gonna single you guys out a little bit because I don't think you guys have presented anything yet. What did your center group come up with for things that didn't work?
Anyone?
So we talked about how just there's very little engagement with in-person events. One group got a faculty member to come, but then he was like, I couldn't really identify who was a veteran, who was a supporter. So at least for that idea, they got feedback about how to, he was like, maybe give out pins. So people have branch pins and, or a flag pin for the dependents maybe, or supporter. So next time they do that, faculty and staff who come can identify who's who. For that, we talked about how veterans are post-traditional students, they're older, so maybe they want events with alcohol, and how campuses aren't very supportive of that. So sometimes that puts barriers ahead of that. The difficulty with trying to get data about alumni and maybe start alumni groups. Also, again, Zoom fatigue, right? Some colleges are mandating vaccines, and students are pushing back against that. So that makes in-person events difficult, and then they don't want to engage online as well. So those kinds of things.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of challenges. Thanks for taking them on, though. Who else has stuff that did not work?
I didn't let you last time.
I'll speak my truth and then pass to anybody on this group that wants to as well. The idea that didn't work for us was more of a mindset that we had to change. So we stopped thinking we could do it all by ourselves, and we stopped thinking we could be lazy with it. I can't just throw something on Facebook and expect it to have traction if I posted at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. You have to hit the active times when people are scrolling. You have to do those things. And the not doing it alone, we got with our institution's social media, and we got with Salesforce. We got on those platforms because we realized I'm one guy. I can't do it just on my own, and I can't expect our work studies or our SVA members to do it too. So we changed our thinking, I guess is the better way for me to say that the idea didn't work.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Share the load. You don't have to take everything on by yourself.
So my chapter is brand new. Like, we just chartered in August of 2021. So even getting off the ground has just been a struggle, and the pandemic's still going on. But one thing we've realized absolutely does not work, me especially, because I'm our communications officer, is I tried creating a little infographic that I sent out on the first of each month with all the dates, what we were doing. There's food here, or we're doing trivia at B-Dubs, alcohol. Apparently no one checks their email, because we have a list of every military-connected student at the university, and no one shows. So I guess what we're learning is no one looks at email anymore. Yeah. We do, but they don't read the email to find out there's pizza. That's true.
I'll come to you next.
One thing that I noticed kind of failed a lot when it came to my chapter, and even further going into the military office at my university, was that we would get buy-in for some of the social events, not a lot as the pandemic continued and as everything stayed virtual, but we got absolutely no buy-in for professional development. Any sort of resume workshop, any sort of LinkedIn workshop, people just didn't want to come to that. And I think a lot of that, my theory on that is that a lot of people were just so tired of hearing about professional development stuff in their classes, and some of the mandatory professional development stuff that each major has, that they just had no interest. They didn't want to sit at a computer screen for a virtual resume workshop or anything like that. So
Yeah, makes sense.
Thank you.
All right.
One more.
Maybe one more?
One
Okay,
more.
one more.
I don't really have a thing that didn't work. I was going to add to what you said about the email. He had the same issue because a lot of his students are online. And I know me at my university, it's kind of pestering sometimes, but we get automatic updates via text. So maybe if you can do something like that, because it's kind of hard to not see it. As well as if you put everything on a flyer and it says, January 1st, 3rd, 5th, whatever, just kind of automate that, because a lot of people don't plan as much as you would think, and they're more like, oh, I have an opening 3 hours from now, what can I do? And they see that, they're like, oh, this is something that I wanted to do, I saw it before, but I forgot the information, and here it is again, popping up. So maybe that could work for someone, because a lot of college students, you get a lot of emails, Canvas, you get tired looking at the computer, but they're always on their phone. And, you know, I'm younger, I'm not young, but I'm younger. And TikTok, Instagram, they need something, a quick sound bite, 7 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and attention is gone. So text might work a lot better.
Great, other tools besides email. Awesome. All right, our last question. So we talked about what didn't work. What have you found that has worked for your chapter? And this will be a little bit shorter. We're going to do 3.5 minutes and 3.5 minutes because unfortunately we're running out of time here, as always.
Yeah, as you were talking about this idea, the one flaw was how do you get everyone else's ideas that wasn't heard when we were talking about it? I was thinking about some sort of Google Doc that they could log into and type in here, but I was like, that takes way too much logistical work. So not last year, yeah, maybe it was LA. I don't know if they did it in Coronado, but you'll notice if you go in, there's guest Wi-Fi and then there's password protected Wi-Fi, and they had that one of the years, and I just don't know if they didn't pay for it this year or what it was, but yeah, or yeah, I was thinking how can we share all the
All right. Last chance for everybody to share. 3.5 minutes. Who wants to share what they came up with? What worked well for you?
What's something that everyone needs to know? Cool. I like your enthusiasm.
Haha. Whoa. I was successful to turn it on. Technology, it's a thing. So I didn't necessarily talk about from our organization perspective from this one, but from our Military Connection Center perspective, one of the things that our office does is we have an orientation program that we do every semester for newly admitted military affiliated students. So every spring and every fall. And we used to only do that program in person until the pandemic. Dun, dun, dun. And so then we had to do it virtually because everything had to be done virtually. Since we have started doing in-person things again, because the pandemic's not over, sad face, we have kept that virtual component. So we now do 2 MTOPs that's the name of our orientation program. We do 2 of them every semester. So we will do an in-person component and a virtual one, and we keep them separate from each other. So we have the in-person one that we typically do during the day, and then we have the virtual one that's like a couple days later that we do in the evening so that people have options. So let's say they don't make it to the in-person orientation because something came up, they can now make it to the virtual orientation that's a couple days later. And that's been really successful for us, and we have a lot of turnout for both of them.
Great orientation. Yeah, perfect.
Did you have? Go ahead.
It's not really an event idea, more just an idea in the chapter that I've noticed has been really helpful for our chapter, is instead of focusing super heavily on like attendance and things like that, of like this event was unsuccessful because it only got 10 people, of like, all right, well, what was the event before that? Was that event 6 people? If it was 6 people, how do we get it to 10 people? If it was 10 people, how do we get it to 15 people? And kind of shifting the goalpost for our chapter rather than focusing on like we were getting 30 people before the pandemic, now we're getting 10, being like, we got a X percentage increase because from the last event, how do we continue that growth pattern? So.
That's great, focusing on the positive and the goals, yeah.
I see you. Excuse me.
Thank you. So for virtual event ideas, one thing we did was we got with our institution's master calendar for events. I know it's not a virtual event, but more of trying to get butts and seats at events by using those existing networks, and it's been super helpful. We were talking about that as well as some haven't. I'm actually going to test this right now. I said I could bet you a couple dollars there's nobody in this room from any school who hasn't had at least one event that 0 people showed up to. You have, or you've never had one? Man, I owe somebody $5, but but I think most of us understand that that's unfortunately sometimes how it goes. Thank you.
Yeah, calendars are virtual tools. Yeah. Cool. All right, maybe one more if we've got anybody interested. All right.
Awesome.
Just because there's so many new chapters, it sounds like. As we moved to virtual events, we didn't just think to include the veterans and those using benefits. We opened the events to all students, and in some cases on the topic staff and faculty as well, to build a whole community, not just the student veterans and those using GI Bill. So think of everybody at your institution and even your community. We've done different events with the community workshops and stress relief for the holidays and brought in community veterans and other people outside of the institution.
Great, yeah, expand your idea of what community means. Perfect. All right, so to wrap this up, we're just going to talk real quick about some of the ideas that we had. Some of them have been talked about. Big thing is talk to your student veterans. I think some people talked about it. What you think is something that a lot of people would like may not be what the broad community wants. So talk to your veterans. And it doesn't have to be a formal survey. You can use one. Google has really nice tools for doing surveys. SurveyMonkey is also another nice one. But you can just talk to them. You have your happy hour and talk to them about what things they would like to see over the next semester. As a group, don't be a lone wolf. So like you were talking about, what's your community? Look at other student groups, look at faculty, look at staff, involve them. And I'm guessing you're gonna find there's a lot of overlapping interests and goals there. So in terms of like specific ideas, I don't think I heard anybody talk about this one. Invite a speaker, so motivational speaker, somebody who's involved in industry, academia, or some other area that your veterans may be looking to pursue. Invite them. It can be over Zoom. I know everybody's tired of Zoom, but for logistical reasons, that may be the easier way to do that. Virtual tours of campus. So someone over here was talking about, you know, you're bringing new students in and introducing them to the campus. If they can't come to like an open house that your institute is having, maybe walk around with a tablet, show them where they're gonna live, where they're probably gonna have classes, things like that. On the other hand, you can have job sites do virtual tours of their facilities. So recently, we had a tour of a drone delivery system that was in Ghana. And we got to see the drones launch, drop the payload, and come back all from the comfort of the United States. Didn't have to travel at all, and it was amazing. Virtual games, I love virtual games. So this is one of my favorites, Scribble.io. There's no E at the end, it's a different website if you include the E. So that one's drawing. You enter a virtual room, one person draws, other people guess what it is. They get points the quicker they guess it. There's also Codenames is available for free online. If you're familiar with GatherTown, we did a virtual murder mystery using GatherTown, which ended up being very popular, went very well. And then sometimes I've talked to a few chapters that have trouble finding their veterans on campus. You know, for whatever reason, they're not being given the email addresses or even the names of veterans who are on campus. So you may have to bring the veterans to you. So that means a variety of different social media platforms that may appeal to different demographics, different groups, and post different events with different people, officers, enlisted, different MOSs, all the possible demographics you can think of. And then post information. So a lot of us have had to figure things out on campus, and maybe you got to talk to this person, you got to fill out this paperwork, and we kind of retain that knowledge and don't think that, hey, maybe we should share this with people coming next. So post that on websites or have a repository, an electronic repository that your veterans can access so they don't have to go through that again. Anything else to add to those, Rose?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great. We've got just a few minutes. Yes?
I don't know about, I know there's a lot of students that you guys might see that are not affiliated at all, but they're kind of popular on campus. A really good tool that we've used is having like kind of how she has vet talks in her school, have those panel discussions with those students that are like a little bit more influential to the population to kind of demystify the issues that they're like the questions that they have. And they bring traffic because when they go out IG Live or TikTok Live or whatever live, the other students click in and they want to see what they're doing, and then that exposes you all as well, and that brings traffic to your chapters.
Oh, great. So like local influencers kind of thing?
Local or just like a lot of just college students, like sophomores, seniors, like you're Mr. or Mrs. like me, Mr. and Mrs. Van Yu, Mr. and Mrs. King of Orange and Green. Like they bring a lot of traffic and can help you guys get more. Even if they don't become members, it gets you them to your events. So might help.
Okay, I'm sorry, we realized we didn't give you a microphone. So she was talking about finding people who would draw a lot of attention to themselves and have them kind of demystify some of the issues that veterans were going through. Did I summarize that correctly? Athletes. Okay, yeah, great idea. Sorry about that. All right, what do you got?
Can I ask a question actually for another order? So I really like the Canvas idea, and I think a lot of the other folks in the room do as well. I do have a question for you though. Whenever you're making announcements via Canvas, I think most military-connected students want that information that's really relevant to them. And I worry, my concern would be is that if you make general announcements via Canvas, there'll be things that aren't relevant, and then it just becomes another platform, right? That they're like, oh, well, I'm gonna ignore this stuff. How have you managed that? Have you run into that issue?
it is an issue, and you do have to be selective of what you're posting. We've used and utilized the calendar so that the calendar will show, but not necessarily announce everything to them. And so they can go in and see what's going on in the calendar, and yeah, that's something I want to participate in. And then we still use email or other communication for monthly ongoing announcements. And you don't want to inundate them or drown them where that they're like, no, I don't want to do this.
Great idea. All right, unfortunately, we're out of time. Rose and I are going to hang out up here if anybody wanted to come up and ask questions or offer insight. We love all of your perspectives as well. And next year, we'll try and create something so that you guys can take all this information with you. But thank you so much for being involved.